what did Stacy really have to overcome to be this version of herself? I think that you can take a note and maybe pause every 90 days and just recalibrate so that you're not dropping weights, hitting the floor, working yourself into complete exhaustion. Like none of that's fun. So that's a really powerful story. What did you have to overcome to rise and also just get to the place that you're very visible with the work that you're doing? And so I know that when I first became visible with the work that I'm doing, I actually threw up a couple times. So I'm very interested to see what you have to say. What did you have to overcome?
For me, it was the visibility. I had to overcome the lack of skill and confidence, the fear really of putting myself out there. And what I realized over the years, in part, was that exercise was a way for me to hide. Because if you think about society, right, when people would hear, oh, you exercise all the time, I wish I could do that. Like it was positively reinforced. And so it was such an easy way to hide, because it was an activity society says we should be doing, and nobody was going to judge that in a negative way if you were the one doing it all the time. But also I felt like if I was thin, if I had like a strong exterior, people wouldn't be able to penetrate that. So it was an armor. It was a way of protecting myself from hurt and vulnerabilities. And again, that eventually had to come down. For me, that's what exercise meant back then. And what I was hiding from was me putting myself out there and not wanting to be judged and stuff like that.
Yeah. I relate so much to your story. I'm just staying over here like, oh my gosh, I'm very similar, but just in different ways. So I've been very career driven my whole life and on the sales side of things, but climbing the corporate ladder and doing all of that. And hiding behind my career was very easy because, again, positive reinforcement. So it's tricky sometimes, you as listeners, you might be identifying with whether it's exercise or your career, but are you really hiding?
Yeah.
It's a good question to ask yourself.
That's why, like in my bio, it's like we hide behind PowerPoints. These are things I believe. We hide behind PowerPoint slides. We hide behind needing more education. We hide behind, like I said, collaborators who get all the credit. We hide behind comparing ourselves and thinking we're not good enough to put our ideas out there because someone else is doing it in a bigger, better, more energetic way. We hide behind labels, introvert, engineer, coach.
Oh my gosh, you're dropping so many truth bombs right now.
So there are a lot of ways that we can hide.
Wow. Very powerful. So climbing off that, and it could come in the form of a lesson learned, aha, or maybe there's a couple things packed in that. But sitting at this perspective, what have you learned that you think would resonate with the audience?
I think the biggest thing I've learned is that, and I call them formalities, but beliefs, behaviors, expectations that we have learned from others that have been put on us by others that we don't necessarily believe anymore, it weighs a ton. It's a heavy weight to carry. It's pressure. And when I think about like physically falling down and just other aha moments that I've had, it always feels like a weight on my back. Most recently, I gave up my business to get a job so that I could pursue more of my creative hobbies in the singing and comedy. And when I made the decision to give up my business, I felt my back. I was like, there it is. That was the weight. And for me, my business, even though when you have your own business, as you know, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners know, like you are out there, that is all you. But for me, that was still a hiding place because my dream was always to perform. This is what I've always wanted to do. I'm at my best when I can make people laugh and feel things and entertain them, not teach them, not coach them, but simply have fun with them. And that's how I best connect. And through that, I can share my story, my insights, things that I've learned, but it's in a much different way than feeling like I have to leave a program with giving them takeaways or whatever. So my business was even a way that I hid from this thing that I really, really want to do. And I'm in a cycle now of recognizing old patterns that are showing up differently and asking myself, how are you still hiding from what you really want to do? And working through that again. It's a new iteration of Stacy. So that was a long answer.
No, it was perfect because I'm also thinking like, but it's so important because in my recent evolution too, coming into my own visibility or authentic self, like there's so many different words you can use for it. But as I pursued my creative passions, I realized too, like I was getting certified. I'm a certified yoga instructor too, life coach. But I thought, I'm like, oh, I'm finally doing the thing that I wanted to do. But then I realized that, oh, I'm still just really embracing other people's work. And which I realized was a way of me hiding. It's like, oh, I don't have to create my own. And then I knew that call, like you have that feeling inside you. And I knew I was hiding. And I was like, this isn't it. I have to come out, so to speak.
So that's what I learned. It's a heavy weight to carry.
It is. And I'm just going to ask you, how are you feeling now that you're in this space of making others laugh and be happy? Like, how does that feel?
When I'm doing it, it feels amazing. It really does feel amazing. And it resonates with people. So I get feedback from them too. So it just, like, nothing else matters in those moments. Even if it's one-to-one and I'm just like playing off what somebody's telling me and just riffing on jokes or coming up with silly things. That's just who I am. I am silly.
I love that.
And I've recently surfaced some old pictures through the years from super young to college where I'm just like, that's me. And so I have them up in my office to remind me as I reach a milestone age, like that's who I am. And I don't have to hide that anymore. And I'm not going to hide that anymore. And people can choose to appreciate it or not. And the same goes to the work I do. I mean, I didn't give up my business and pursue this without another job. I have a day job. But I went into that interview process very similarly. Give them who I am. I'm not going to hide anything anymore. My accomplishments, my personality, the way I think. It's unconventional compared to a lot of people who work in environments. They can take it or leave it, but I'm not going to conform anymore. So that took a lot of work. We see a lot that's like, just be yourself. And it's like,
what does that mean? And how do you get there?
You have to have a desire for something different. You have to have the support of people, of financially, emotionally, relationally, especially if you're in a partnership or have a family, whatever your situation is. And you have to be willing to experiment and explore and change directions and rest when needed and really.
Ooh, that's a big one too. Rest when needed. A lot of people think rest is being lazy, and it's so restorative for everything.
And it takes time to get there. I used to leave for Shavasana in yoga when I first started yoga. I was like,
Stacy.
It's so important, I feel like, for people to really understand the things. We often see people who have come a long way, and all of us have come a long way in our own way, and we don't talk about the mess that we had to go through to get there. And I've done jokes about this in some comedy routines, and you're a yoga teacher. I'm a yoga teacher. I think sometimes that practice, the way it's been commercialized, leads us to believe that as soon as you get on your mat, you're going to have peace and zen, and that's simply not.
It's just not true.
Not true. You're going to have a mess and chaos and frustration and irritation, and all the crap is going to start coming up that nobody told you was going to come up. And unless you have a really good teacher to be there and support you, which thankfully I did over the years to understand what was happening,